So Choshu. What was up with Choshu? Choshu had been ruled by the Mori house, as we have talked about before. But during this time period in Choshu, and interestingly elsewhere in Japan as well, certainly in places like Satsuma, places like Tosa, centers of opposition to the Tokugawa, the traditional command structure of the clan was changing. The daimyo were still there, the house elders were still there, but the people with the most the people with the greatest influence in these domains were fast becoming radical activists who were young and who were not necessarily very high-placed samurai. So it was a kind of a curious situation where the leadership of some of these domains, certainly in Choshu, felt increasingly cowed by its more radical young constituents, and then eventually was replaced by these constituents, although nobody ever actually really got rid of the daimyo. They just became less and less important, which is something which I think remains to be studied. There's quite a lot of great material that can come out of looking at the changing of the official samurai chain of command during the late Tokugawa period. But in any event, what these radicals managed to do before they took over the governments of these domains was just to get their domains into great messes with the Tokugawa. In 1860, I believe in 1863, a group of radical Choshu samurai, but with some representatives from other domains, including Mito, of course, in Kyoto, attempted to essentially launch a terrorist action that would start the restoration. What these radicals tried to do was to break into the imperial palace, to steal the emperor, by this point still Emperor Kome, and escape with him, and then to become a center of opposition around which disaffected Shishi could congregate, and then to go and overthrow the Tokugawa. In some ways, this is really reminiscent of, just go back here for a second, it's really reminiscent of the Heiji Rebellion, where Fujiwara Nobuyori tried to, and in fact did, kidnap Emperor Go-Shirakawa in a night attack, and then let him out and used him as a center of opposition against Sataira. In his case, he lost later on, but you can really get a lot out of this question, I believe. Was the Meiji Restoration a civil war or a samurai rebellion? In many ways, the day-to-day actions of the Restoration really did resemble some of those earlier events. But in any case, the Choshu people failed. They were thrown back in what was called the Kinmon incident, the Forbidden Gate incident. Essentially, they tried to storm a gate of the imperial palace. They were thrown back. The troops that defended the imperial palace were Aizu troops and Satsuma troops. They hated Satsuma. Aizu was another domain that the Choshu really didn't like. They are so fascinating. This was a domain which was in north central Japan. It was ruled over by a descendant of one of the, I believe the second shogun, Hidetada, somebody who was connected by blood to the Tokugawa family. Eventually, the Aizu domain and their leadership became some of the strongest supporters of the Tokugawa. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the offices of the Aizu daimyo, Matsudaira Katamori, was to be the Kyoto Shoshidai, to be that official in Kyoto, the Tokugawa official, who controlled the city for the Tokugawa. So he was kind of their policeman, representative in the city, and domain troops from his domain collaborated with troops from Satsuma domain to put down this Kinmon incident. And the Tokugawa thought that they really needed to do something against Choshu. The government of Choshu was becoming infiltrated by radicals. They were being appointed to chief government positions. And the reformers in the Choshu government were actually very scared of this growing radical movement. They did not necessarily like the fact that their retainers went and attacked the imperial palace and tried to start a war, but the Tokugawa chose to punish the entire domain for the crimes of these people. They said enough was enough. We know where many of these people are coming from. They're coming from your domain. And basically cut the crap, and we are coming for you. The Tokugawa assembled a very large army from multiple domains. For the first time in a long time, samurai were told to report for duty, and a large army. I'm sorry, I forget how many people, but certainly in the just far outnumbering the Choshu defenders. They marched on Choshu, and they engaged in a very bitter kind of fighting, which in many ways resembled something out of the world of trench warfare, rather than traditional samurai fighting. The Choshu troops were well fortified, they were dug in, and they performed much better overall than the troops commanded by the Tokugawa, who were from many different domains, had command problems, were not very well motivated, in many cases were not very well trained, and whose military skills had been rusting, while the successful military reforms in Choshu really made it possible for the Choshu to put up a very strong resistance. Nevertheless, it became clear that the Tokugawa would win, and this sense of impending defeat in Choshu itself led to kind of a coup. The traditional authorities, these reformers, reasserted themselves. They executed 3 radical councillors and reorganized the government, and told the Tokugawa that their government was now safely in the hands of reasonable people.